We do have this piece of news which we need to get out of the way. First of all, in terms of M&A, I mean, would you be interested in Channel 4?
Well, it may not be news. I mean, it's a report, and we would never comment on speculation. It's total speculation. I think the most important thing for ITV about Channel 4 is that the remit of Channel 4 as a public service broadcaster remains the remit, because it's a really important part of this PSB landscape that people value so much. I mean, if you look at what's been happening over COVID, not just government, but viewers have in volumes said how important public service broadcasting has been, whether it's impartial news, real information, accurate information, impartial, trusted, but also the soaps, which have been a lifeline, also the morning shows that have stayed on all the way through COVID. So I think government actually recognised the value of public service broadcasting in a way maybe they didn't before. And that is the most important thing, because we are very lucky in this country, I think, and privileged to have that ecology, which no other country has.
It's very true. When you look at the media disruption, I mean, it's left, right, and centre. It's the social media. It's some of the on-demand. How do you see actually the media landscape changing from now in the next 3 to 4 years? What will be the way that we consume news?
Well, you are completely right that, if you are ITV or Channel 4 or any broadcaster, you are now competing with Facebook and Google for advertising dollars, and you're also competing with all the streamers for audiences. So it is a brutally competitive world, and that's fine. You just have to produce brilliant programming to compete with that. What's not fine is that the legislation that regulates broadcasters, public service broadcasters, was set in 2003 when Facebook didn't even exist. And therefore, the modernisation of that 2003 Act is so critical to the future of broadcasting in this country, or public service media in this country, because in the linear world, if we can call it that anymore, because in a way there's no such thing anymore, it's just all one thing. Yeah. But there are very clear rules about prominence, i.e. where you're listed, about accessibility, and about kind of value for the content you give for free. That doesn't exist in the digital world, and that's what's got to change.
And I have to say, from some of the international viewers watching us, and I know the Americans say, what, you have rules governing broadcasters, but not actually what's online? I mean, a lot of people just find it's very unique to the UK. Why have these rules not changed?
It's a good question, because I think if you have been on this side of the fence, you have been pushing for change for quite... I mean, I've been at ITV for 4 years now, and we've been talking about this with people in government for quite a long time. I do think Ofcom, our regulator, has really got it now, and I also think government has got it. And so I think there will be change, but I would stress how urgent that change is. Now, of course, we were just talking about how many priorities this government has. You look at the news flow at the moment. My biggest plea is that they don't allow this aspect to drop down the agenda because of all the other priorities, simply because if we don't act quickly, it'll be too late. There are countries that kind of say we wish we'd done something earlier on regulating, or the framework for this important kind of broadcasting communication. I mean, that's what it is. It's about society. It's about how news is received. It is so important, the fabric of democracy, that I think it's got to be acted on now.
When you look at the UK landscape in general, and we could talk about the fuel shortage, but just some of the things that have been happening in the UK, maybe more because it's a small, open society and we're still dealing with Brexit. What does it mean for the media and film industry? Is it more difficult to attract top talent from abroad, or to actually sell some of the things to other broadcasters internationally?
So I think talent is always going to be hard. I think that might have just got harder, but it's not impossible, because I think if you are a known supporter of creatives, which ITV is, we're a global business in ITV studios. It's a really important part of our diversification away from advertising. And I think we're known to be creative, and so creatives like working for ITV. So I think that's a very, very important aspect of what we do, and we allow people a lot of creative autonomy within the labels so we have about 56 labels in ITV Studios, and they run as pretty autonomous creative units. So that's incredibly important, I think, to the talent we attract. Also, we have established long relationships with a lot of the writers, the directors, the crew. There's no question there's skill shortage behind the camera. There's no question about, you know, if you're in production, you have to work very, very hard to get your crews back. Your second question is, we have, you know, about how do we sell? I mean, our shows, British shows, are much in demand. I mean, it's amazing. We've doubled our business with streamers over the last couple of years from ITV Studios. You know, our ITV America is doing extremely well.
The numbers are incredible.
Incredibly well. I mean, if you think about Snowpiercer, Cowboy Bebop, One Piece is coming on stream. There's so many big shows.
Why is that?
I think it's a combination of us selling British content with British talent to the global audience, which is loved. So whether that's Love Island, whether that's The Chase, whether that's I'm a Celebrity, there's a whole ream of shows that we do that are much in demand overseas. And then I think what we have are these amazing studios that we support and back that are able to have that creative autonomy and make shows that are commissioned by streamers or cable networks or broadcasters in the States, but also in Italy, also in France. You know, Cataleya's really good, Tetra's really good. You know, there's just a whole load of very, very strong scripted and unscripted labels in the group.
So what's your biggest, I mean, what do you spend most of your time that's, you know, that's actually hard to do? Is it fake news? Is it, you know, producing content? Like, what does
kind of
Carolyn McCall...
everything. Look, nothing's that easy. But I tell you, I don't worry about news, because we've got a fantastic news team, and we have a fantastic director of news, and you know, they are just...
That's the one side.
So, you know, we're involved in that, but I don't have to worry about that. I think my greatest worry is kind of being able to convey and communicate both internally, first, the pace of change and how we can't let up. We're doing well, our progress is good on the digitally led transformation, but we can't let up for a minute, and it can be exhausting internally. And then externally, the really, really big challenge is getting the analysts to see that we have a digital business which is making a lot of revenue, and that we are not a traditional structurally challenged business, because we're not anymore. If you just think about what we've invested in, which is Planet V, which is an addressable advertising, you know, highly targeted advertising solution. VOD is going really well. We're going to be an AVOD-led business. Data, you know, technology, analytics for the first time, you know, ever in ITV, but that's been developed over the last 4 years. So it's really transforming. It's not transformed yet, but it's transforming. But the analysts, if you're a bear, they fear that the structural challenge is not behind us.
But why do you think that is? Because I hear that also from banking chief executives in saying that, you know, if they're very fintech rich, analysts struggle to price that.
I think they struggle to price it, and it's fair, is that they don't know what numbers to put into their model yet. But I kind of wish they could make an estimate based on performance, on progress and performance, rather than just taking a bear view, which is like, it's not going to happen. The challenges, you know, are more than the opportunities. We actually think the opportunities are significant going forward, and we believe we will thrive. Now, that's subject to what we were talking about earlier, about government taking action and making sure we have prominence and accessibility, availability. But we think we have a great future, because we make so much content, and then we have this mass simultaneous reach. So you think of any big event, big dramas, big sporting events, big entertainment shows, they get 10 million, 12 million viewers, unheard of, in a trusted environment. So, you know, I think great opportunities ahead to blend those two things.
When you look at, you know, the pledges that some of the companies have done ahead of Glasgow, so how does ITV look at this? And is there a joint industry effort, or do you feel like you're going at it alone?
So both, I would say. I think ITV has, I mean, we came out last year with climate action pledges. We said that we would be net zero by 2030. So I think that commitment first was really, really important. The next thing for me was how we communicate that internally and how we get buy-in internally, because there's quite a lot to explain about how we might do that. It's not just a number. And the other thing, of course, is we have a lot of power as a broadcaster, as all of us do, to really influence behaviour. So we can change behaviour from the public, from viewers. So we've really focused on that. We've really thought about how we schedule and how we commission, what programs we do, and we've got a whole raft of those, including next week and this week. So, but not just for Climate Action Week or COP26 or whatever. I think the next thing is comprehensive disclosure. I'm a big fan of that. If you think about gender reporting, I mean, it was fairly transformative when companies had to report, and I think the same with climate. So comprehensive disclosure, I think, is really important because you can hold yourself to account, but others can hold you to account. Setting targets. So we are going to set our team targets on climate action, just as we do on diversity and equality. I think it's really important to get those targets right. I think it's really easy to say we're going to set targets for the senior leadership team and then, you know, think, well, what does that actually mean to them?
So what do you mean by setting them right? Like, you know, ambitious enough so that they get done?
So I think they have to be linked to the plan. So our social purpose strategy, which includes climate action, is completely part of our overall strategy. It's talked about in the same meetings, it's talked about in the same environment. So we blend those things. So it shouldn't be too big a step for us to actually integrate this. We've done it with DEI, with diversity and inclusion, and that is working really well. And we've done that for the last 3 years. So we'll use that as a model for climate targets. But I think those targets have to be based on science and they have to be stretched, but they have to be achievable. And each area has to know what they have to do to make those. And of course, training comes into that. That's the other thing we've been doing a lot. We've been doing climate action training. I am a fan, though, of blending training with real life interactivity about people's ideas, because I think training, mandatory training, has a place. But
training, what do you mean by training?
Well, this is
because it's very difficult to know.
So training is like you'll do an online module or you'll do a workshop. Right. But the online module is quite, you know, I always feel, you know, it's fine because it can give you awareness of things you don't know and you don't feel stupid about asking the question because it's there. You get it wrong, you get the answer. That's fine. There's a place for that. But I actually think the thing that works better in organisations is doing lots of workshops where you get people's ideas about how they can change. And I'll give you an example of that where the soaps have got together, so Coronation Street and Emmerdale have got together to agree storylines that they can do separately about climate action in the soaps. And that will happen quite naturally over the next year to 18 months to more. But that's something that was their idea.
Awareness, of course.
And then digital, you know, going diesel generators, which of course we use for OBs, for outside broadcasts. You know, Emmerdale phased those out. They just decided they weren't going to use them, they were going to test other generators so that they reduce their carbon footprint. So I think getting those ideas in from various people that work in the organisation is really important.
Caroline, so we have a lot of chief executives that come on and say, you know, this is what we pledged, this is what we want to do. If there's, you know, nothing happening at the leaders level, at the government level at COP26, do you think some chief executives will be discouraged in saying, well, look, I'm trying to do a lot for my organisation, but actually if the world leaders from the government level can't give me enough support, then what's the point in me trying so hard?
But it's a bit like your question about what are you doing as ITV and what are you doing as an industry? I mean, you have to do both. So we're working with the industry. We all belong to something called BAFTA Albert, which is about sustainable accreditation, which Bloomberg probably do as well. It's a brilliant scheme. It started in 2011. We were a founding partner, and we're now doing carbon an index for carbon usage, which all the industry can use, and we all come together in a forum. So that's brilliant. That's very powerful. I think it's the same. I think it would be very, very bad, and I don't think CEOs would do that in this country if it's as a result of other countries' passivity or ambivalence, if there is, that the UK would stop doing what it's doing. Because the UK is setting very ambitious targets, I think. I think the government is very ambitious. I don't think any of us would have believed 5 years ago that the government would have set out their stall in this way, and they have. And I've been very impressed. I sit in a group where there are a lot of CEOs around the table, and 7 companies, you know, have really galvanised to do this electrical vehicle fleet accelerator because they've got massive fleets and they're trying to switch them quickly away from petrol and diesel to electric. And the power of 7 companies coming together is fantastic to see. And I've witnessed that. So I don't think we should stop doing all of that.
Caroline, here we talk a lot about, of course, the resurgence of COVID, a possible lockdown. Has that had an impact on advertisers?
Not at the moment. So at the moment, I think there is quite a lot of, there's a little bit of underlying conversation, isn't there? And you see it in the media a bit. I actually believe that the government really doesn't want to lock down and doesn't want the economy to freeze again. And certainly from an advertising point of view, we haven't felt that. What we have felt is supply chain issues. So if you're, the car industry has definitely had to stop advertising for a period of time because they can't get enough cars out to market. So we've seen that kind of issue, but not because of a lockdown threat.
Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. Carolyn McCall there, the ITV Chief Executive.